By now, you may know that Trump has nationalized the National Guard and deployed them to the streets of Los Angeles, along with 700 active duty Marines. This is the first time in 60 years that a president has deployed the United States military to a U.S. state over the objections of a state's governor. Why should we be alarmed about this? Well, first, the U.S. military is being sent to police First Amendment protected activity. That's not good. It's also strategically bad for our country. We're turning our eyes inward and choosing to send battle-hardened Marines and soldiers to confront American citizens on our own streets. So why is Trump doing this? To intimidate peaceful protesters. That's why. It's not about law and order. It's about intimidation. He wants to inflame tensions. You're probably asking, is this legal? So I'm going to talk about some of that today. The authority Trump is using to do this deployment is dubious. Federalizing the National Guard and deploying active duty military and Marines over the objections of a state's governor is an extreme measure. It's rarely ever used, and it is dangerous because in this case, it is not designed to keep the peace, but to make things worse. It is about sending a message. It is about suppressing political speech. Our laws here in the United States of America say that our military cannot engage in domestic law enforcement. So our military cannot do searches and seizures, cannot do arrests, cannot detain people. This is a core notion. It's been enshrined in law since the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. The only exception is if the president invokes the Insurrection Act, which you need to know about thanks to Donald Trump. But before I discuss the Insurrection Act, you should know that as of right now, Trump has not invoked that exception to the law in this case. So how is he deploying these troops then? Under what authority? Well, Trump is using Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which says that the president can use the military against any rebellion against the United States. Okay. Trump is making a huge leap here, folks, in saying that these largely peaceful protests equal a rebellion against the United States. Never before in American history has Title 10, this code, been used to do this. This current presidential proclamation that he's using is vast and open-ended. Trump's order allows federalized Guard troops to be deployed anywhere in the country at any time without a single governor's consent. Think about that. Even for things in the future. This is unprecedented. It is a major shift in civil military norms, and yes, we should be worried. Why? Recall that during Trump's first term in office, he wanted to use the military to shoot protesters in the legs. He wanted to give that order. He was only stopped by the then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the then Secretary of Defense, who told him, no, you cannot do that. You should not do that. But the truth is, he could give that order, folks. There's nothing in law that could stop him. And now he's surrounded himself with yes men. As Secretary of Defense and as advisors, these people know exactly how to get around the very laws that were enacted so that our military would never be able to be turned into the Gestapo. So, what is the Insurrection Act? You may hear that being talked about this weekend. That act is an exception to American law that allows the president to deploy the military domestically and allows the military to be used in domestic law enforcement. It was enacted in 1792. The problem with that law is it's very vague. Okay? It fails to adequately define or limit when our military may be used against civilians, and instead it gives the president significant power to decide when and where to deploy the military domestically. It is supposed to only be invoked only in a crisis that is truly beyond the capacity of civilian authorities to manage. So, consider that Trump right now wants to create a crisis. a fake riot perhaps, or maybe amplify a small riot that he wants to be perceived as a large threat to the country. A fake crisis to invoke that act and be able to legally use the military to do whatever he wants on American soil to citizens. That is where we may be very soon. So yes, we need to be vigilant. No president has unilaterally invoked the Insurrection Act against the state's wishes, since Lyndon Johnson did so to provide protection for civil rights activists in Alabama in 1965. That was a very specific time frame and a very specific location. The last time the Insurrection Act was used was during the LA riots in 1992, but that was with the consent of the governor at the time. What's happening right now, I think, may be worse than invoking the Insurrection Act. Why? Because Donald Trump is not even bothering with asking for governor's consent anymore. This new presidential proclamation that Trump is saying he will federalize troops and deploy them anywhere in the country at any time without a governor's consent is unprecedented. When several of my colleagues, experts in governance, democracy, and national security all got together last summer, we did several tabletop exercises, I call them war games, for what might happen in a second Trump presidency, what we might be worried about. Many of the scenarios that played out then are exactly what you are seeing happening right now. Trump would use his draconian mass deportations to create chaos in blue states, or the perception of chaos in blue states, and then use that chaos as an excuse to declare a national emergency. This allows him to seize more power. We are seeing this play out right now because what he is doing is a misuse of the military, a misuse of military power. The military's job is to protect us from foreign threats, not to intervene in domestic political debates. Be aware of what's happening, especially as we head into the weekend, a weekend of national protest. Thank you for caring enough about our country to understand this stuff. Peacefully protest if you can, and keep paying attention.